he was gone. That was like the first loss that I ever actually encountered. I had to go through. I mean, which is an awesome blessing that it took up until, so it was 7 years ago now. So like I was in my, late 20s before I ever really endured a big loss in my life.
Okay.
Which I think is a massive blessing. And wow, what did I learn from the loss? So just going through that grief, that was kind of the initial part of my reflection of life. What am I doing? Why? 18 months later, out of the blue, my dad passed away. And, I talk about my grandpa being larger than life. This guy was everything to me. I mean, he coached me in all the sports. He was incredibly hard on me at times. Just like I tell a lot of my clients, I'll love you 51% and challenge you 49%. And really realizing once we started to dive into the small business world, how broken people are and how much poor leadership there is, and employees are numbers and they're a bottom line, and leaders are struggling and leaders are victims of the business. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's no different than anything I've ever encountered, like from my, grandpa and my dad working at General Motors, and I've heard all those stories. So for me, it's like, we have to help people. I don't really care how much of a success or failure there are. We need to believe in them and we need to challenge them, because that's what they did to me, and that's what I'm going to do to everyone else, because that's why I'm here. That's why I exist. In that period of reflection and personal growth, I can't remember exactly who said it. It'll probably come to me the second we're done recording. But the two most important days in a person's life are the day they were born and the day they figure out why. So, I think the difference between a good leader and a bad leader is really simple. And it's, do you care about the people who you're leading? I mean, I think Simon Sinek says it better than anyone. Like, leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about who, we are serving.
We've found in a lot of companies, there's a vacuum. A leadership position opens up.
Oh, yeah.
Or we've built a new department and we need a leader. You were excellent in sales. You were excellent in marketing. Let's make you the manager, the director, the VP.
Yeah.
And I've not equipped you. I've not given you the training or the skill set.
Right. And all of a sudden they're a leader of people who are doing the job that they were really good at.
Yeah.
But that's not their job anymore. Their job is to lead the people that they were really good at. And I mean, that's where companies break all the time, is in the middle. But I would say the number one challenge that we encounter is communication.
Yeah.
And in parallel with that, human behavior, because it's extremely difficult to change, although it can be incredibly simple.
People are messy.
People are messy, right? I mean, one person and their storyline makes complete sense. Add one more and it's infinitely complex.
Right.
And I mean, that's as simple as a $25 million company to a $500,000 company. The number one challenge we face every single time is communication.
We're created for greatness. Inside of every one of us has something special, has greatness. And man, I see so many people living these lives of quiet desperation that they don't know what that greatness is. Yeah. They don't believe that there is. Why am I here? There's no point. And so it's like, okay, when we talk about our why, understanding what we're doing here, for me personally, that is, even if it's a small portion, even if it's just a little bit to pull that greatness out of somebody and say, hey, this is here. Now, how do we develop that?
Yeah.
And once that's caught, it's not just taught, it's caught. How do we bring that about? Then they're going to see that. And ultimately what we've found when we have helped build and showcase leaders is they want to build leaders and they want to develop leaders. One of the biggest challenges that we see in businesses, in performances, organizations that we're working with is communication. Communication on the vision, communication on their culture, communication departmentally down to your clients. And it's a big struggle.
Oh, yeah.
And so we mentioned in the last podcast, DISC. We said, you're a DC. I'm an IS. And what does all that mean with these letters? And what is DISC?
Yeah.
So today we're going to do more of a primer, a little bit of an overview of what DISC is, how it works, and really how that can help you communicate to your organization.
You're probably, listening or watching and thinking like, oh man, that's Susie, or that's Bobby, or oh, that's me. I mean, he's talking about the S personality, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a D personality. And if this person is on my team, I'm going to be barking results all day. And they're going to be sitting there going, do you not care about me? Actually, no, I do care about you. I want to get you a result. Right. And so those are some of the issues that we see every day, and that people spend so much time on. I mean, how many times we sat in the boardroom or, a lunchroom or a leadership meeting of a company, and they're going round and round, and they're not really saying nothing. And all it is that conflict that you're talking about. And it's just they're talking about the same elephant, but the D is talking about the snout and the S is talking about the tail, and they don't understand why they can't meet in the middle.
I'm going to talk first on your language, because it's not treat others as you want to be treated. It's essentially, I want to communicate to others as they need to be communicated to. Because even if you're on the side of task, it's like, man, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to build a business and an organization.
Yeah.
If I can speak on your level and if I can communicate it in a way that your team can receive it, wouldn't they get more done? For those that are on the task-oriented side, you'll be familiar with this phrase, like, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when will you have time to do it again? Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately sometimes what happens when you're in the meeting. You're in a meeting with your people of 10 to 12 people trying to get a point across. Mm-hmm. And for 30 minutes of the 60-minute meeting, you're talking a different language and you're not able to get on the same page.
Yeah.
What if there was a way that you could identify the pattern, you understood how to communicate to somebody to where they received it, and now we're having a good dialogue, they're not misreading it, and you're getting the job done. Mm-hmm. That's ultimately what this is and how that works. Absolutely. I know that I'm a people person.
Yeah.
I know that I can be impulsive in the life of the party. I don't relate to the charts and graphs and Venn diagrams.
Right.
But I do want to understand, how do I communicate to that person? Because we always say, when I communicate to somebody, I am just as responsible, if not more responsible, in that person receiving that communication than me giving it.
No doubt.
So I need to be in tune with, like I said, I tell my wife, what did you hear me say just now?
Ooh, so there you go, right there. Ask that question.
If the body language in your words are not congruent, if you're saying something and you should be getting head nods, but you're getting kind of this, right? Stop and call that out. Hey, I'm sorry, what did you hear me just say? Oftentimes, in the way that you deliver it, it's not what you said.
Like, it's not meant to put yourself in a box. It's not meant, hey, I'm a D, so I can be a jerk. It's not meant, I'm an S, so I don't do confrontation. It is not meant for that. It is meant for self-awareness. It is meant to connect further, faster with your team. It's meant to be used as a tool that you're now equipping and empowering yourself, your team, and your business as a whole to save time and make more money. So that you can grow your legacy, so you can further your mission, further your vision.
So one of the cons of I have succeeded is that we will continuously overrate our performance, right? So if these are the goods, what are the bads? Overrate performance. PRF there. You guys will get it. And so what we'll think is like, I might only be a 300 hitter in baseball, but I'm coming up there and I'm acting like I'm a 750 hitter, okay? Or things like, I was 75% closing sales last week, so next week I'm going to be 85. Things like that. Or, man, I really killed that meeting, or I killed that keynote, and no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that tends to be some of the cons. We overrate our performance. I just heard a great story just yesterday. Talk about customer service. And like, Jeremy, do you think customer service is really important?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. Are you willing to ask your customers about customer service and how to get better at that?
Of course.
Absolutely. Do you ask your wife?
I do not.
But the story that I heard from that was like, oh, okay, yeah. So that breaks it down right there. Perfect example of it. Feedback is very important. So, hey, pro tip, go ask your wife or your husband or your kids. I've done that too.
How can I be better?
And man, they'll tell you the truth.
And if you go to the people that report to you and say, guys, how can I get better? Understand that the only reason I exist in this position with relation to you is to serve you, is to help you. Now, we've had some successes. We've done well. I may have some blind spots. So listen, I just want, if I've not done this in the past, man, I'm sorry, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to send you some stuff and take a look at it. And man, if it would do me a solid, and hopefully it will help you out, if you can tell me in what ways are working for us, in what ways I struggle, in what ways that I can do to better serve as a leader.
Absolutely.
To help show not only the bright spots I might not see, or help shine light on the blind spots that I can fix for you. So that is a way that I can just humbly come to you and just say, man, I don't have all the answers, and that you have a perspective that I don't. Feed forward is hey, you know what? I'm looking ahead. What are some things that I can do better going forward to help serve you? Right? I know that we have a lot of meetings. I know that we do this. We try to keep on a deadline, on a schedule.
Yeah.
Based on these things, moving forward, how can I serve you better? And the intent is always looking at from here and now, moving ahead with a goal that you have coming up. If I'm thinking we do very, very short-term goals, but then we're thinking 5 years ahead. So now I have a staff, I have people that I'm looking towards, and we have some projects that we're working on. And then I'm also looking, just like in that last example of internally.
Yeah.
As I'm diving in, knowing that I might have some blind spots, I might address those as well.
Digging into yourself a little bit deeper. I mean, just here's some questions to ask. We just jotted them down. One, how do you feel about change? It's going to happen, so do you want good change or do you want bad change? What's the, and this is out of Jay Klein's playbook, what's the worst case scenario? Right? What's the best case scenario? If you're struggling with it, why is change so unsettling to you? Why are you struggling with it that much? And flesh out why it is that you would change. We do this with our leadership clients, and the reason that we do is because it's a cost-benefit analysis of, is this behavioral change worth it or not?
I want to be able to accept and own a failure. Because I'm responsible as the leader, I got to own it. And if a bucket of paint dropped, I got to make sure I clean it up. Something breaks, I have to pick up the pieces, right? But that doesn't make me a failure, right? I have 4 kids, and it's one of those things where you're not bad. Maybe you've done a bad thing, but you're not bad. Maybe this project was a failure. Desi, we've had many of them.
Absolutely.
But that's not us as a failure. And so it's understanding that I can accept failure. In fact, I have to we plan for failure.
Absolutely.
If point A is here and we want to get here to success, we inevitably know along the way right here we're going to fall on our face.
Yeah.
So like first responders, we want to say, okay, how do we prepare for that? How do I flip that script a little bit? The fear of loss or the negativity bias that we have inherently in us says that I'm 2 to 3 times more likely to focus on the negative than I am the positive. In fact, you've been in sports all your life.
Oh, yeah.
How much more does a loss hit than a win? Conscious mind processes bits of information at 40 to 50 bits per second. Seems like a lot, even though,
a lot.
I mean, as ADD as I can be, right? I only can focus on 1 or 2 things at a time, and even that, sometimes I can get easily distracted.
You hear that myth, too, that multitasking.
Yeah, absolute myth. Like, you're never going to be able to be optimal unless you can just pinpoint and focus one thing. But our conscious brain, 40 to 50 bits per second. Our subconscious awareness is anywhere from 4 to 10 million bits per second.
So a
Little
pretty
bit more.
crazy ratio there.
Yeah, like a few more bits per second in your subconscious. Overall, 90% of our overall function, brain function, thoughts, cognition, all of that, 90% of it's subconscious.
When I played college football, every time we would come back from a break, spring break, Christmas break, whatever it was, we would have a conditioning test. I would wait till the last day of break and like really try to crank it out and be like, okay, I think I got this. I failed twice, which is horrible because you have dawn patrol, 5 a.m. every day, running that same test over and over again until you pass it. Okay?
Wow.
That is where I learned the law of intensity versus consistency. Because now, when I went on break after that, I just ran a little bit every day. Mm-hmm. And man, guess what? I never lost my fitness. I never lost my cardiovascular. Came back and never failed another test.
When you're living on default, focusing on your problems, which is ultimately what happens to most of us, you're going to get what you expect. That's just going to happen. If I come with intent and instead now think focused, what did the last 5 successes look like? Because I've had some wins.
Yeah.
I had some, whether it was sales, good closing ratios, whether it was business growing 15, 20, 30%. I've had some of that success. I'm going to put myself there and say, okay, what did that look like? How did I feel? What was the process? Right? I'm thinking about those past successes, not on autopilot, but so intentional to the point that I can tangibly feel it. From point A to point Z, let's call it at point G, you are going to fail. You just will. So what's my response to that? How do I feel about that? Yeah. And then what am I going to do about it? So if I'm asking that daily, I'm killing the scary taboo and stigma of it and looking at, man, how can I build from it?
Absolutely. And now mine, and this is what we do with our clients, is they come in automatically 8 p.m. every night. I get a text message, and I have to fill out just the answers, and it's like yes, no, and rate it -3 to +3. Was I a good husband today? Was I a good dad today? Right? Did I make a difference today? Did we win or lose today? And the we part is really important in that. It's not about me, it's about us as a team. Right? And then you know what I do after I answer those questions? I watch stand-up comedy because that ends my day with joy. Talk to us about what do we need to do? How do we go off and handle our day today?
Well, start with one thing. Be intentional. Right? We've covered a lot, so go back and listen. We'll have some materials. If you guys comment in the comments that you want the materials, we'll get you what you need in some of the visuals here that you see.
Absolutely.
But start small. Start with one thing. If that's, you know what, it seems kind of hokey, but I'm going to focus on gratitude. Start there.
Absolutely.
The key is be intentional and be consistent, because that auto loop or that mixtape that's playing, if you allow it to, will just continue playing on default as it always has. So if you want different results, if you want to break out of that slump, start there.
The thing that's going to get you results is communicating and collaborating on the expectations and the accountability of them. Like when it really comes down to it, accountability is turning expectations into results. 86%, okay, 86% of executives, managers, employees of 400 companies, all of which had 10,000 or more employees, 86% of them said that communication is the #1 cause of errors, failures, and lack of productivity in the company. 86%.
Crazy.
That's insane.
Oftentimes, you're going to say something that the other person is going to hear something completely different. And then you're going to get frustrated and say, well, I told him this 6 times. But 6 times, he heard something else come out of your mouth. And so it's always good to do a check-in. Are you clear with the expectations? What did you hear me just say?
Yeah.
Get them to repeat to you what was being spoken. Because now we're aligned and there's that connection. There's so many times where you leave a meeting and you may be upset, confused, frustrated because somebody said something to you that was not their intent.
Yeah.
And as leaders, it is more your responsibility that they receive properly what you tell them than that you told them. But as leaders and as business owners, oftentimes we want them to take ownership. We want them not to just
all the time. Right,
we want them to just not be a clock puncher. Okay? One way to do that is starting with why. Why do they get up in the morning? Why are they coming? Why are they choosing your organization to work for? Why? Right? Is it family? Is it legacy? Is it esteem? Is it status? What are those main reasons, right? Because if I can know that, then I can figure out how to match those with what the company vision is. Goodhart's law says when a measure becomes a goal, it ceases to become a good measure, right? So if I'm measuring by you just by units sold, but if the quality stunk, if you burned a bunch of bridges, well, I'm measuring you great because you sold a bunch, right? So you need to know as a leader, what are the standards and metrics that I look at that I care about? So then, after I explain to this person on how to do this, not only do they know how to do it, but they know why it matters and what they're going to be measured on.
Yeah.
And then, this isn't like every single day I'm going to measure you on 50,000 things. This is going to be like, we often look at metrics like the gauges in your car.
That's good.
I'm not a gearhead. I like cars, but I don't know a ton about them, right? I couldn't fix an engine if it was broke, like one of my good buddies.
Yeah.
But I do know when my gas gauge is on E. I do know when my tire pressure's low. I do know when I need to get an oil change. These metrics, when you're getting this reporting, should just show you that. Are these key performance indicators that are tracking you towards your goal or behind?
Yeah. And that's also going to tell them, like if I say, hey, report the closing percentage to me on the daily. Oh, closing percentage must be really important.
That must matter. What we sometimes fail to think, Desi, is by not making a decision, we've made a decision.
Yeah.
We're holding on to something that needs to take place,
right?
But I'm deciding not to act.
Yeah, that's the safest.
So I would maybe even look at that from the standpoint of reflecting on how we make decisions, right? Am I not making this decision because I don't have the information? Am I not making this decision because I'm afraid? Am I not weighed out worst case, best case scenarios? Am I not making this decision because of other people are swaying me maybe for or against what my values and my standards are?
Yeah, you're being persuaded or manipulated,
Yeah, or am I just procrastinating?
Yeah, which tends to be a lot of the time.
I'm just too busy and I lost track and, procrastinators unite tomorrow. I'll do this tomorrow.
I love it. We run into leaders, to teams, to sales pros that say it all the time, I'm just super busy. I'm just super busy. And honestly, that ticks me off a lot of times. Because I'm like, yeah, but the best builders and the ones that get things done are the busiest.
Yeah.
There's the old adage of, if you want something done, call someone who's busy. Right? Because they're going to figure it out. But you'll notice it's a small tweak of saying the word busy versus, I'm juggling a lot of plates.
Yeah.
Like, I try not to use the word busy.
Well, and oftentimes, Desi, there's busy work that is treadmill work.
Oh, yeah.
And so that feeling of being busy and feeling exhausted, it's probably true. I can't discount that. However, man, how efficient are we? How effective are we? So we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, and I want to debunk a myth, too. And I'm going to debunk this because I fell into this trap, is that we can't waste any time. We're going to make sure that, Desi and Jeremy saying don't waste time. Make sure that we're being really effective, really efficient. That doesn't mean that I can't spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I don't have an intentional date night every Friday night with my wife. That's intentional. That's not wasting time.
That's the key.
Right? So that becomes really, really, really important. Absolutely. By design, all of the things, career and life. Now, do I also intentionally, I don't call it wasting, I call it resetting, but do I do that too? Yep, I do that too. because I need that regeneration.
Yeah. And your key word there, Desi, that you said is intentional.
Do it right, do it light. But the only way to do it right and light is by doing it long and wrong for a while.
Okay. Nice.
Okay, so you've got to figure out the time and the skill in order to be efficient and effective.
No, that's great.
That's how I learned it the hard way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. We get that question quite a bit, is like, so which do I need? Do I need efficiency? Do I need
Trick question.
Yeah.
Both.
Yes, the answer is yes. Right?
Red or blue? Absolutely.
Do I need efficiency or effectiveness? Yes. I mean, because if you think about it, Desi, we can be efficient in a lot of things, but not effective at all. Right?
Oh, yeah.
If I have a focus, you talked about stupid emails earlier. If I have a focus that I have to get through and send these emails, or I have to make all of these phone calls, and I make those calls at 6 a.m., but I'm calling California, probably not super effective.
No.
When we talk about that, and we'll look at this here on the board in a second, but we want to look at when we prioritize, we can easily batch, we can easily group and say this task relates to this task, and I'm going to knock this whole category out. But I don't want to be making a quote, be in a corporate meeting, be on the phone, be text messaging, be IMing, and then watching my favorite show on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing it right now. Full transparency. We're batching these right now. Yep. We're doing multiple episodes so that we're in the state of flow. This morning, I did the same thing. 4:30 to 8:30 a.m. I have two massive screens. They're both 27 inches apart. Right? I call it my battle station. I had one window open and no phone, no lights, and had one thing in mind.
Yeah.
That is it. All right, and guess what? I knocked that thing out of the park and actually got halfway done with another thing that I wasn't even planning on. Dwight Eisenhower said, I have two kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent. So we're going to break that down for you. And talk about each one and talk about where you should spend the most time. But in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about the urgent things cause us to react, which switches us from doing things that we actually should be doing, the priority type of tasks, items, skills that we want to be working on. And then urgent tends to have a mask on. It tends to be disguised as important because it's usually important to other people.
When we talked earlier about being busy, I'm busy. I'm doing busy work. I feel somewhat validated and gratified because, man, I answered 375 emails today. Right? I was able to answer 55 questions from my staff. I was able to put out a ton of fires. But very seldom did it line up with quadrant 2, which is the growth, focus, values, preparation quadrant. Okay?
Yep.
Now, when you see this, and we'll have these resources if you're not on the YouTube, if you would like some of these resources for yourself, we will have you click on the link. But as I circle this, 1 and 3 is where most people spend 80+% of their time. And when you say ownership, people are like, well, I don't own the company. I'm an executive. Yeah. I'm a leader. I'm an employee. Yeah. I'm a sales manager. Ownership is everything. If you're involved in it, then you should take ownership in any part of your role. Well, I don't have stock options. My name's not on the building. Right. But you are part of that vision. And so I know you're going to get to this, but how you apply ownership to that mentally, how I can take ownership of something when it has nothing to do with me on the forefront, how do I relate that and say, man, I have ownership as the CEO of my family. I have ownership of CEO over my department. And really look at now what that means to me is, well, I'm responsible for that. It's so much easier to criticize and complain than it is to actually lead.
Yes.
So it's harder. It's harder to have these mindsets and to look and say, am I blaming myself? Do I take ownership? If I don't have ownership, I can easily say, well, that's him, and here's why. Let me tell you. That's super easy to do instead of really trying to dig in and focus on owning it.
You have to always own the problem, but then when the result comes that you're happy with, that is empowering the team, becomes more important than you taking the ownership of the result. Right? You have to let the team own the result. You own the problem and the failure. Like you're thinking, oh man, if I own that failure, people are going to think that I'm a failure.
Right.
And it's like the complete opposite. They'll look around and be like, oh. And when Bobby's sitting over here and, he's a manager, but you're a supervisor, and Bobby totally screwed up, and he starts to talk and you say, actually, that was on me. I'm the one that gave that to Bobby. That's on me. That's my fault. Right? And me and Bobby are going to handle this. We're going to fix it together.
Yeah.
What do you think just happened in Bobby's head that he now thinks of you as a leader and that you just took that ownership and you owned it, you're responsible for it? He's going to run through a wall for you.
Yeah, being that open with him.
Yeah, right there. And taking just that responsibility and commitment, it changes everything. So let's give him some examples, some tips, some ways to tell if we have good ownership. So first one is health. I mean, that's how you know that you're owning your own life, your own body, your own emotions, your diet, your fitness, things like that. That's a quick sign right there. Now, I don't mean you got to be, up on stage flexing for a competition, but just, do you have yourself together? Do you have yourself together? At the end of the day, mindset, it requires no talent, just effort. And so there's nothing to it but to do it.
Right.
We had an old running backs coach in college. Every game day, man, he would roll to that locker room 20 times. Nothing to it but to do it. There's nothing to it but to do it, boys. Nothing to it but to do it. But it's ingrained. And it's like, man, but mindset does not require talent, just effort.
But let's talk about failure. Like, it's an inevitability.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
We all face it. We all go through the pain of it. And it doesn't matter whether it's as a husband, as a dad, as an owner, as a teammate, fill in the blanks.
Yep. Leader, sales rep, blah, blah, blah.
If you have a goal, if you have a situation, it's probably not going to turn out as you originally thought. Yeah. And along the way, you're just going to
I'm thinking of this. Maybe it's a meme, maybe it's just a picture, but it's like success, and it goes whoop, straight up, and then it's like real life, and it goes boop, 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 boop,
or like all the squigglies, yeah,
and then you go up, right? Like all of those things that aren't just this straight line.
You're deciding not to do something is a decision.
Yep.
So a lot of times people say, "Well, I can't fail if I don't try." Wrong. Like, you've already failed.
Yeah,
like,
you decided failed to try.
You decided not even to try, to actually go out and do something.
Failure.
And oftentimes, even if you come at this, not just having a tinge of fear, but being gripped with fear, focusing and dwelling on fear, that's the whole foundation of your process of even trying. When that happens, you're going to fail, and then you're going to think it's self-fulfilled. Call to action on this, guys, is develop a worst-case scenario.
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss has an awesome blog on this. Check it out if you have some time. But ahead of time, think about, here's the goal. We have a project. We're working on a client, and we see challenges. We see strengths, and we say, okay, this is the route we want to take.
Yep.
What's the absolute worst thing that can happen?
It's a great way to play out.
Step by step by step.
So, like, flesh it out.
Yeah.
You're saying, yeah.
Should this completely fail, what does that look like? Worst, probable, possible, best. Just so you have that laid out, just so you have an understanding, and that it takes away that, because even though there's still going to be some variables, I think every day we're throwing curveballs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does take away ultimately the fear, guys, that I've experienced, that a lot of people have in this, is just the fear of unknown.
Yeah.
I'm removing a lot of that element and the stigma to that by, and I'm just, since I don't know, what could happen? Because there's a good chance that in these scenarios,
One of those
feel
four is
those
going to
things
be what happens.
Gonna happen
For sure.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And we know that because we've done it.
celebrate failure.
Yeah, that's right.
So take that in just for a hot sec and think about that, because when you fail, we talked about the sting. We talked about dwelling on it. Inherently, your mind and your brain says, stay alive, don't be uncomfortable, red alert, you failed. When that happens, we've talked in previous podcasts about loops and the soundtrack in our head.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to fail. Why did I even try? I'm so stupid.
Man, no, don't do that.
What if instead you reframed it and celebrated it, not in the failure itself, but in the fact that you're one step closer to success? We do this often with sales reps, especially that are new in the field and that have some reluctance.
Yeah.
They're great with people, but I don't like objections, and what if they say no? Well, then they say no. If you have people that report to you, the greatest gift that you can give them is empowerment to make a decision. If they feel safe, if they feel okay that they can make a decision and screw up, when we bring people in for onboarding or newer folks, that's our stump speech. You're going to be really bad at this before you're good at it.
Yep.
You're going to suck until you don't. Absolutely fail. There's nothing that you can break that we can't fix. So have at it.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, if you don't open them up to that, all they see is this little box that they can work in, and they're afraid to make any type of decision for fear of failure and upsetting the boss.